want to go?
I can't tell me.
Well, welcome to Who's Your Daddy, and I'm Pastor Christian, and it's an honor to be in your home once again after about a year of vacation time. And have I enjoyed it? The answer is probably no. But I do want to say hello to those viewers who are watching. Even, I guess at this point, we're streaming around the world, and so I want to say hello to my mother in Oklahoma, and I hope that she's not suffering too bad because of the severe storms in the south. So our prayers with her. But tonight is a special night because this is our very first live program here at the new PSA studios here in Kent, Washington. And for those of you who have never seen Who's Your Daddy before, we invite you to tune back in because we have a lot of guests, a lot of different formats, and a lot of different folks that we do have on periodically throughout the history of our program we have. And I do want to make mention of this before we begin with our guest today, Dennis Moyer, a very dear friend of ours. But the guests that we have on the program, we may or may not agree with everything that they say. And that's sort of like my statement to everybody because, we like to have guests from various walks of life, different concepts of life, and folks from that are walking maybe on the different side of the road than what we are. So rather than judging them and hating them like we find in a lot of mainstream religious organizations, churches, schools, cities maybe even, we don't do that. We like to welcome everybody and make them feel welcome and at ease and have a very non-judgmental approach. Because it is not my place or the place of this program to hate or to judge anybody because of whatever that the reason is. So, Who's Your Daddy and its history, going back a little bit in time, we started in 2001 in Seattle at the Scan Studios there. And we had actually quite a few seasons at Scan. So when we then came to the south end, here to Kent, and here recently, and began to start the classes and the production workshops and different things to use this facility, it just makes it a whole lot nicer. And besides, it's new equipment, and so it's not taped together. So on this program, it probably is not going to be completely seamless. For those of you at home, there may be a few blips and bloopers here and there. But do hang in there with us because we have Steve, my partner, Steve Bowen. He's the director. He's in a darkened room at the moment, and so I can't see his face. But we have Luke in there. We have Carrie Stockstead, the manager of the station. She's executive director, she likes to be called. But she's in and about, so I don't know if she's back there at the moment or not. But we've got several people behind the scenes making this work one way or another. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome Dennis to the program, to Who's Your Daddy. And we're going to be having an interview with Dennis because he is a cannabis, I guess would be the right word, a user, but not abuser. And there's a big difference. And I decided to have Dennis on as the first crack out of the box for this program here in the South End, and because there's a lot of things that people just do not understand. And like I've told him before, off camera and in my own home and even his, that there's a difference between using something or abusing something. There are substances that are on this earth that we can all use, that I believe that God had put here for a specific reason, but we should not be in a position to abuse those things, but rather to use them for what the right purpose is and with the right heart about it. So Dennis, you are into a lot of things right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been getting kind of busy lately.
Well, let's dive into some of those things and tell us about it.
Okay. Well, first off, Robert, I would like to thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to be on your first ever live show, and I really appreciate the opportunity to spread the message of what I'm about. I've been trying to spread this message to share it with people that wouldn't normally be receptive to medical cannabis use. People who tend to look at functions such as Hemp Fest, for instance, and all they see is a bunch of people partying, and in some people's words, they say that's a bunch of stoned out hippie freaks or things like that. And you know, there is some partying that goes on there. This is true. But primarily, there are other things going on that people just aren't really aware of because they sort of close their eyes to it once they see the cover of the book, if you will.
Exactly.
And
well, Dennis, I know that you're probably nervous because I can hear a little shake in your voice.
Oh.
But just relax a little bit. It's all right. I mean, I'm not going to bite your head off, you know. But anyway, so I do first want to start and say that Dennis does speak in community colleges as a guest from time to time, and he does share a very powerful message. And I believe that the message that he shares, and like I've told Dennis from before, that any message is only going to be as good as whoever's telling it. A story is only going to be as good as whoever's telling it. So Dennis has really come a long way with being able to share his story. And so tonight we're opening up the floor so Dennis can share his message or a part of it. Whatever got you started in public speaking, like in colleges or maybe even on radio? I know that you've been on radio and television in California. What made you decide to start going into public speaking?
Really, it just sort of was placed in front of me. I seemed to be kind of in the right place at the right time, and because of experiences I've had, I felt like I was the right person to do this. So I decided to go ahead and put myself out there and try to help to change the public face of medical cannabis so that other people can benefit from this very good alternative medicine.
Well, that's, you know, it is a good start, and I know that when I, years ago, the first time that I was on the radio, on the air, I worked at a 50,000 FM watt station in Houston, and owned by a major evangelist and pastor, big name person. And anyway, the first time that I went on the air there, it was so funny because, you know, I was sitting there at the control room, everything was quiet, the song had just ended, and suddenly the on-air light started flashing in my face, and then I just looked at it, and looked at the microphone, and I just died laughing, thinking that was the funniest thing this side of the Mississippi. So after a good laughing spell, but you know, it's interesting because I know that when I was a kid, I really had a fear of speaking in front of folks. Maybe because I was afraid of being scrutinized or despised by something that I would say, or maybe I wouldn't say something right. But you know, after I got over all that, it became a whole lot easier for me to deal with it. So now I know that from our personal friendship, and we do have a good one, folks. Dennis is a good guy. That you have also come from Houston, Texas.
That's correct.
Of all places, that's where my ministry actually began 20 plus years ago in Houston. Do you find this area, the Pacific Northwest, specifically where you live, different than you did in Houston as far as response and receptiveness of people who listen to you?
Primarily, the people are really not that different. The laws are different, and people's response, the way they respond to the law, seems to be different. Here, the law seems to respect the people more. In Texas, it's expected that the people respect the law more, and so that's the main difference. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it is. I used to have the bumper sticker that said, "Don't mess with Texas. Whatever you do anything else, but don't mess with it." I remember that. There was another one that said, "Welcome to Texas. Now go home." But anyway, we actually not long ago, well, you remember, but we took a road trip down to Texas, and it was kind of an interesting trip, to say the least, in a U-Haul truck. At least we weren't in the back of it. It was slow enough, but anyway, didn't need any more weight